Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Guwahati University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 8 of the subject of Introduction to Computing, in which we are going to discuss the computer networks and different types of the networks. Dear students, in daily life you use different sort of the networks. You can use the networks for sharing the data, for emailing purpose, or just for watching different videos over the networks. So it is important to understand the basic concepts of the computer networks. This is the discussion agenda. It contains the topics of network definitions, the uses of a networks, common network types, and at the end we will explain that how networks are structured. So first we will define the networks, that what is a computer networks, then we have the usage of the different computer networks and what are different types of computer networks. And at the end we will explain that what is the structure or architecture of the computer networks. Dear student, this is a very vast topic. So in the next upcoming topics or lecture, we are also explaining the structure of the computer networks by using different topologies. So this is very important lecture to understand. Now what is the computer network? Basically, networks contains a set of the technologies that connects computers. There are multiple technologies inside a computer networks, and this technology in fact connects multiple computers over the internet. So computer networks allow communication and collaboration between users. The basic purpose of computer network is to perform the medium or to perform the communication between multiple users. For example, one user can use computer networks to access the mobile applications. Similarly, another users can use the computer networks to access the wave files or audio files. Similarly, another users can use the computer networks to perform the printing jobs. So it means that multiple devices can be connected through the computer networks. Also, computer networks may connect another computer as well, or the PDAs, that is the personal digital assistants. So also, the computer networks can connect multiple other hardware such as different peripherals. So computer networks task is to connect the multiple users while utilizing different hardwares. Also, computer networks can utilize the software as well. For example, we can share the information or to share the different softwares. For example, if you are using the Facebook, so Facebook is one of the software that is shared among different users. So computer networks can share the hardware as well as another software that are installed over the servers. Now, what are the primary usage of a computer networks? The main primary usage of a computer networks is to access the data. Sometimes the data is shared over the networks. For example, if we are sharing a large amount of data, then we will use a cloud. Nowadays, we use the cloud database for email purpose as well. When you are sending large amount of data, then that data is shared or stored over a cloud, and then the data is transferred from one position or from one user to the next users. So the purpose of computer networks is to share the files, but access can be limited. For example, if you want to share a files for read only, then it is read-only access. If you can want to share the files over the computer networks for reading and writing as well. So that is also the accessibility of that files. Computer networks share files stored over the server. Another computer system which is called the server, which serves the clients. Those computers shares the files, and the files is usually resides over the server computer. Now server can be shared as well. Another softwares can also be shared. For example, we can share the site licenses. That this license is in fact shared among different students, but if this software is accessed by unauthorized users, then the license will block that particular user and the other user will not use the particular softwares. Also, we have the network version as well. We have multiple versions of the computer networks. Some versions shares the files and some version just provide access, that is read-only access to the files. Also, we have the application servers as well. The application servers has a task to share the application or the softwares. For example, if you have the KUST access, then that is shared among the students. For example, we have the KCMS. KCMS is for the in fact for viewing different results of the student as well as their activities over the campus. So that is also in fact one types of application servers. Also, computer networks is used to share peripherals devices. Peripherals are different hardware devices which are connected with the computer. Sometimes, due to cost issues, we share different devices among different users. For example, we can share the printers and faxes which are shared among different users. We can also reduce the cost per user as well. For example, one printer is shared among different users of the class. If we are not sharing the printers, so that means that every student has its own printers. So that's why to reduce the cost of the computer systems, we share the referrals. Similarly, devices can be connected to the networks as well. We can connect or share the devices which are connected to the server computer. So everyone can access that particular device. So the user will access first of all the server and then he or she can use the particular device. Printer servers control network printing can also be shared, which has the manage the print queue. So here we will provide a printing and the printing job will be in the format of the different queues. So for example, if one student provides 3 pages printing, then printing will be wait. If already one printing is in fact in continuously printing, so then the other printing will be in the printing format. And similarly, different users will wait for that printers. So there can be also the problem of the deadlocks when one printer is shared among different users as well. This is the diagrammatic representation of the sharing the data. So all the files are the applications, that is the softwares, are in fact resides or a computer called the file servers. Also that is called the application servers, which contain different documents that will be shared among different users. So here the access is provided to multiple users over the networks. This is in fact the examples when we want to share a file where multiple authors want to update or write over the files. So everyone has the right accessibility for the files. So one user writes something over the files, then the another user is also notified here. So that is the in fact example of sharing the data. Sometimes we also share the data over in email. For example, when one sender sends a large amount of files or data to the multiple receivers. So then the receivers are in fact the client computers, and that computer which shares the file is called the server computer. Now another important usage of the networks which is very much common is in fact the personal communication. And the example of the personal communication is the email. Here instantaneous communication is performed between sender and users over a network. There is also a network which is called, in fact, network computer, which is called the server computer, and that server computer perform the communication. For example, if we are using the Gmail servers, then the data is in fact accessed through the Gmail servers. And one user updates the softwares and the another user watches or perceives the different updations. For example, in email is examples of the updation where the data is sent into the user email box. Similarly, a conferencing is also another example of the personal communication. Here we perform the teleconferencing video conferencing, audio conferencing, and data conferencing. So, for example, if we are using a remote conferencing, then we will use either teleconferencing or video conferencing or audio as well, and data conferencing as well. Nowadays, different sort of the social media are using conferencing system. For example, in Facebook, you can perform the conferencing as well. Similarly, there are also other softwares where you can perform the conferences. Zoom can also perform the conferencing. So you have to just register over the Zoom networks. That is, in fact, you will just search the Zoom networks in Google, and then you will register yourself, and then you can create the conferencing, and that conferencing will be online. So you can perform the distance conferencing over networks as well. Also, voice over IP is in fact also an example of the computer networks. That is important applications. For example, when we want to perform TV channels to be broadcasted, so then we perform the voice over IP. So phone communication over networks was also perform the voice over IP. We are just using a phone communication among different users. So then we will perform the voice over IP. This is the example of the voice over IP. Basically, we have internet backbone. The internet backbone is responsible to perform or transfer the voice over IP to the users. And the voice is actually stored or processed here on the server. So servers transfer the voice to the internet backbone, and then backbone sends that voice to the particular user only. So only registered users can perform the communication here. Easier data backup. This is another usage of a network which is very much common nowadays. So we can perform easier data backup. Now we do not require any sort of the backup media such as the hard disk or floppy disk or similar USB disk. So we can use the networks to store the data over a network. For example, in fact, Google Cloud is one of the example of the storing data, and which can be used as a backup. So everywhere, when you go, for example, if you are now in Pakistan and you are visiting United States, so when you will go to United States, so you do not need to carry the certain backup hardware, for example, hard disk. So just you will store your data over a computer networks, and then you can access that data everywhere in the world. So backup copies data to be removable media. So you can also add or remove the data from a network. Server data backup in one step. So you just use a one steps to store the data over a network. Now we have multiple types of computer networks. So it depends on their size as well. If it is a large network, then we will use a larger network. If it is a smaller network, then we utilize a very smaller network. It also depends on our usage as well as our requirements. Sometimes you do not want to share the data over remote servers. For example, we do not want that this data should be accessed outside of the campus of the university. So then we will utilize different networks. And if you want to share the data over a large network, then you will utilize the different networks, or you have to design a different networks here. First important networks is called local area networks, also called LAN. Basically, LAN is a network which contains printers, servers, and computers. Here, different hardwares and softwares are stored, or in fact they are shared among different users. Systems are close to each other. Here there is no big logical distance between the users. So they are just on the nearby to each other, and contains in one office are the buildings. So here this network is in fact installed or configured in one office or a building. For example, if you have a LAN network in your department, for example, in our department, IIT, Institute of Computing department, so we have our own LAN network. Similarly, physics and chemistry and similarly education department as well as psychology and pharmacy department have their own LAN network. So that is only accessible over that particular LAN network. Organizations often have serial LANs. So mostly organizations have the serial LANs. For example, if this computer want to communicate with this computer, so that computer will communicate over either this computer, either these two computers. So there will be the several lanes in the organizations, and for example, this may be one sublines, then will be another subline, and overall this is a full sublines. So this is overall major lines, and there may be certain two or three or more than 2-3 lines here. So we can design multiple computer lanes in here. Another important network is called wide area networks. This is a larger network than LAN. And as its name indicates, it is in fact configured or installed over a wide area of land. So there are two or more LANs are connected, then we can call these all WAN networks, that is wide area networks. For example, this is a Paris LAN which included in the Paris city. This is another LAN which is in fact the London LAN, and we have the New York LAN as well. So three LANs are communicating with each other through the wide area networks. So that means that continents can communicate with each other through the wide area networks. So here two or more LANs are connected over networks. So it is a very large geographical area networks. So you can connect multiple cities as well as multiple sort of the countries here. So this connect large amount of networks with each other. That is typically used for public or leased lines. For example, there are media which can be either public media or it can also be the leased media. For example, Pakistan is using its leased media from the UAE. So that is in fact leased because we are paying to that particular company which have installed the media. So basically we have multiple media, and the media can be phone lines as well as satellite media. Phone lines are the cable medias because this cable may be either phone line, but the phone lines are very much costly as well as it is not durable because maybe due to certain reason it can be breakable. So the communication will be break. So also it can be satellites media. Satellites is wireless media. So multiple computers can communicate with each other through the satellites, and satellites is usually on the skies. So basically the satellites receive data from one network and send that data over a space to the another network. The internet is also an examples of the WAN, that is wide area network, because internet connects cities with each other, and that cities will be located over a big distance here. Which is important examples of the WAN where we can connect multiple computers over the internet, and internet is also called the web networks, that is World Wide Web. Another important example of the network is called the hybrid network types. In the hybrid, as its name indicates, we can connect multiple networks, and these multiple networks have multiple structures. For example, they can be either LAN or WAN or any other networks. So here another example of the computer networks is called campus area network, that is CAN. As its name indicates, a campus area networks is in fact a LAN in one large geographical areas. For example, university is one of the campus. So university is one of the CAN, that is CAN, campus area networks example. Resources are related to the same organization. Here, the resources are related with each other, and any outsider user cannot access to these resources. For example, if we are using the hardware resources like printer or camera, so the campus area networks will be utilized, and only that hardware will be used by the user of that particular network. Each department shares the LAN. Here, multiple departments have their own LAN. For example, in a campus, we have lab. Lab is in fact a setup where we have a laboratory of computers, and that laboratory of computers can access to the hospitals, hostels. Hostel means that we have hostel data as well here. For example, what is the room ID of my hostels and how many are the roommates there, and what is the in fact fee of that particular hostels. So here I can access the hostel data from the lab. Also from the lab I can access the college data. For example, if in university we have multiple departments and each department is called the college, so then we can access that college data. And the college data is also accessed by the lab and hostels. So this is a network which is shared over a campus, and that is in fact a bigger than LAN, but it is smaller than the WAN network. Now there will be specific user of the CAN networks, because another unauthorized users cannot access to the data or the CAN networks. Only student or teachers or the administration staff will use that particular CA, and that is campus area networks. Another larger example of the network is metropolitan area networks, also called MAN networks. As its name indicates, the metropolitan area networks contains a larger networks which can share the cities. So that networks can share big organizations. For example, in the metropolitan area networks, we have large amounts of the networks that connect different organizations. Like office buildings is one of the organizations. Similarly, we have the residential areas, another organization. Also, we have the government offices are another organization. Similarly, university campus is also another sort of the organizations here. So all these sub-networks are communicating with each other through the metropolitan area networks called the MAN. MAN is actually smaller than the wide area networks, so it connects a large amount of organization with each other. So larger networks that connect different organizations are the examples of the MAN. It shares the regional resources. For example, if we have certain regional resources, like we are utilizing the bank, which is a regional resource, so then we will use the MAN networks. A network provider sells terms. Basically, the network provider who is responsible for installing and configuring the metropolitan area networks. So that metropolitan area networks is in fact provided or sold to the different users. Now here you can see that university campus is another network, but if a student who is residing in fact in the home, so that students can use the metropolitan area networks to access the university campus. Another hybrid network example is the home area networks. That is very small networks, and it is only configured or installed inside of a small home. So small scale networks is a home area networks. It connects computers and entertainment applications with each other and found mainly in the homes. For example, here you can see that different hardwares or different users are connected with each other through the wireless media. Here, that media is responsible to connect multiple users, and this user in fact is connected through the World Wide Web. So World Wide Web first transfer data to the hardwares, which we are listening in the next topics, and then these hardwares send the data to different others hardwares like laptops, computers, PDAs, that sponsor digital assistants to different users. And these users are not logically residing over a big distance, just they are residing in a one home. So that is a small networks which are residing over a home, also called the home area network. Another important examples of the hybrid networks is called the personal area networks, that is PAN. All these networks are in fact depends on the distance. Personal area networks is a very smaller network. Here, very small scale networks are connected with each other, and its range is less than 2 meters. So only on 2 meters you can perform the communication. Examples of the different hardwares are the softwares that we can share or a personal area networks, that is the PAN networks, contains cell phones, personal digital assistants, are MP3 files. That is MP3 is a types of files which has the extension of .mp3, and that contains the audio and video both files. So for example, if we have a personal area networks and that personal area network shares cell phones, also can share the printers, also that personal area network shares the audio or video files, and similarly that personal area networks can share certain peripherals like keyboard or mouse, or similarly other devices like camera. Basically, this is a very small types of the personal area networks where it can be installed only on a table or on just one room. So the distance must be very small here. That should be not more than 2 meters. It should be less than, in fact, 2 meters, because it is a network which can be used in just one room here. So that's examples are these types of the personal area networks provides a great access to sharing certain device, but it also limits the device from one room to another room. You can share the different device in just one room, which has just a range of some 2 or less than 2 meters. So this network is in fact used in different houses of different rooms. So personal area networks is a smaller network. Mostly it is smaller networks, and larger than the personal area networks is the home area networks. So that's why this network also has a special features, because it access to the it provides restricted access to the different users over the distance, and the distance must be less than 2 meters. Another important example of a network is the client-server networks. Now, every network has a server and clients. This tells us how the networks are structured. Means that what is the architecture of the network. So we have the server as well as the client computer. So in the client server networks, we have two types of devices are the computers. One is called the server and another are the different clients, and different clients are using different hardwares to access that servers here. In the client server networks, we have nodes and server shared data, and every unit of the hardware is called the node here. For example, this is also one of the node, but this is the in fact the server node, and these are the client nodes, and these are connected over the internet. So here nodes are called the clients. These are different clients, and server are used to control access towards these clients. For example, if this user has the reading access and another user has both reading and write access as well, so it can control the access of multiple users over the networks. Servers are used to control the access, and here the database softwares are used here. So for example, database is usually resides on the server, and the client access that database. So access to control is controlled by the servers among different clients. For example, in our university, Quad University of Science and Technology, we have the KCMS system, and that KCMS is in fact shares the data among different nodes or clients. For example, teachers can update the student marks, also can provide different activities, that is in the class activities, to the different students, and students can view just the data here. They cannot update the data. So that is in fact the controlled access of multiple nodes. So access to the data is controlled by server, and server is the most important computer in the client side server networks. So this overall the access as well as the files and the softwares are stored over the servers here. And these clients, which are called the node clients, they can access these servers over the internet. The internet may be wired or wireless internet. For example, it depends on the media, that whether it is the wired media or wireless media. We are explaining different types of media in the next class. So we have just wireless media or the wired media. Mostly nowadays the wireless media is used because wireless media is more reliable and efficient than the wired media. So because wired media can be easily broken, so that's why we can not use the wired media. Nowadays we using a wireless media, and we are provide access to the wireless nodes here. Another structure of computer networks called peer-to-peer networks. In the peer-to-peer networks, that is P2P, we have multiple nodes, and these nodes are called peer, and peer have the equal access. That means there is no client and servers here, so everyone can share the data among different peers, and peers have the equal access controls, and every peer is connected to the another peer. For example, if you can see that this peer is connected to this and all the four other peers. Similarly, this computer is connected to this peer, but this is also connected via this peer. So this computer also has the access to this peer over here, this route and this route. So there are two different routes for communication between these two computers. So all the nodes are equal and node access resources on the other nodes as well. Each node controls its own resources. Most modern operating system allows peer-to-peer networks, and distributing computer is a form of the networks which is called CASA. CASA is the one example of the distributing computer. Now you can see this is the client server model, where one client is sharing the data among four different nodes or clients. While there you can see there is no client or servers, everyone is connected with each other. Now dear students, this is the end of this lectures. So this is the book for your reference, Introduction to Computers by Peter Nortons. So you should download these books and read these books for your topics. And also if you have any questions, so I will wait for your questions. My email ID is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk, which is here in the bottom section of this slide. I will wait for your emails and will respond to you as soon as I get them. Thank you very much.